Welcome to Introduction to Survey Design for People with Lived Experience. In this video, we will cover how to define the purpose of the survey, ethics and risk mitigations that need to be considered, how to build the survey, the importance of testing your survey, how to disseminate your survey, analysing survey results, and closing the feedback loop. Firstly, it is important to understand how you want to involve people with lived experience. Do you want to develop a survey that will be completed by people with lived experience? Or do you want to work with people with lived experience to collaborate and design a survey about a particular topic? Or do you want to work with people with lived experience to collaborate and design a survey that will also be completed by people with lived experience? These may sound similar, but there are nuanced differences that need to be considered when you approach the task. It is also important to clearly understand the purpose of the survey and what you want to gain from your interaction with people with lived experience. You can send a survey to achieve different results. For example, you may want to gain insights and knowledge about particular experiences or phenomena that you might not be able to get elsewhere. You may want to ask people with lived experience to share their thoughts and experiences to help shape and inform a project or research approach. You may want to ask people with lived experience to provide feedback about a particular topic, research materials, policy position, or campaign materials as examples. As a light touch way for people to share their experiences, where people with lived experience can share their stories without being formally interviewed or the need to attend a focus group. Or you might want to share ideas about future research projects and give people the opportunity to sign up and participate. Once you have a clear idea about the purpose of the project, it is important to consider the ethical implications of doing lived experience research in this way and what risks might occur and how to mitigate against them. At this point, you will have a clear rationale that a survey is the most appropriate method to use compared to other lived experience research methodologies. You will need to consider whether your survey will include any exclusion criteria. Do you only want to account for lived experience within a certain time period, or do you need to exclude people based on recency of such experiences, or are there any demographic exclusions that you need to consider? It's important to recognise that sharing experiences and stories can be emotionally challenging for people. In the welcome email and survey introduction and every survey page, ensure that you include relevant signposting information to any organisations that can offer support or advice. Think about whether you need to include any trigger warnings. These can be in the survey introduction statement or before any specific questions. Consider whether there are any phrases or terminology that could cause upset and think about alternative phrasing or words to help mitigate against this. Consider how accessible and inclusive your survey is. The people participating in your survey may have specific needs which need to be accounted for. There are some great technologies available to support inclusivity. If you are not sure, ask people with lived experience what could help to ensure the survey is as accessible as possible. As with any survey or research activity, informed consent is crucial. Ensure that any communication and introductory statements clearly explain the purpose of the survey and how the results will be used, including details of the lead researcher for any questions or points of clarification. And if you would like to use specific quotes from the stories or experiences shared, ensure that you have requested explicit consent for these to be used. Whether you are building a survey for or with people with a lived experience, the following suggestions will help to ensure that your survey is accessible and accounts for the distinct needs of the participants. Ensure that the survey is updatable. The survey subject may be heavy and challenging at times. Therefore, it is important to give participants the opportunity and flexibility to take a break and save and return to the survey. Surveys as part of the lived experience research are different to traditional research surveys. The findings are not meant to be generalisable or replicable, and the purpose is to gain insight and knowledge about specific lived experiences, so have plenty of open text questions, so that participants have the opportunity to share. The subject may be difficult, and participants should have the opportunity to choose which questions they wish to respond to. By ensuring that all of your survey questions are non-compulsory, participants can pick and choose which questions to answer. This will also lessen the risk of participants dropping out of the survey, as they can skip questions if needed. The survey may require the collection of quantifiable data. If using closed text questions, try to follow this up with an open text question asking why that particular response was chosen. Questions can provide interesting insights. When designing and collaborating with people with lived experience, recognise that the person is so much more than their lived experience. They will have a range of skills and experiences that can benefit the research design process. However, it is important to have open and honest conversations about how people would like to be involved, what skills they have, what skills they would like to improve and develop, and account for any training needs. Ask people with lived experience about language used in the survey, and to check that it is accurate and sensitive. It is important to include a final question at the end of the survey, asking if anything important has been missed or if the participant would like to add anything further. This provides the lived experience participant the opportunity to highlight something important that may have otherwise been missed. It is important to test the survey before sending. Check the length of the survey and make sure that it is not too long, particularly if the subject matter is challenging. Make sure that the option to save and return to the survey is working. It would be disheartening for someone to share their experience to later find that the technology is not working as it should. Ask people with lived experience to test the survey. Check any language and terminology to make sure it is accessible, inclusive and sensitive. And check that all links work and that the survey is accessible across different devices and platforms. When sending the survey to participants, make sure that the introduction statement is clear and the purpose of the survey is equally clear to ensure informed consent. If asking sensitive questions in the survey, be upfront and tell the participant the type of questions or experiences they will be asked about. When disseminating the survey, think about any relevant networks or community groups where the survey can be shared or if people would like to participate. When working with people with lived experience, ask if they have any links to relevant community groups where they can share the survey. This will help to build trust and people will be more likely to participate. If there are any exclusion criteria, be clear what these are in the introduction statement and explain why people may be excluded. If possible, offer people alternative methods to share their story or experience. And ask people with lived experience if they have any innovative ideas about where the survey link can be shared. Once your survey has closed, it is important to consider how or who will be analysing the results. Set aside plenty of time, as the survey will have more open text responses than a traditional research survey. Look for key themes and trends within the survey, but accept there may be a divergence of experiences and opinions. This is fine, as the purpose of the survey is different and the nuances will make the data richer. When working with people with lived experience, recognise their skill sets and where extra support or training may be required. The survey results may contain experiences or stories that are hard to read. Ensure that everyone on the project team has access to emotional support if needed and factor in regular debrief sessions. Think about how the results will be presented and the audience they will be presented to. It is important to recognise that people have taken the time and energy to share their experience and stories. Think carefully about the different stages that feedback can be provided. Explain clearly how and when the results will be used. Think about how the insights or stories shared have impacted or changed the research project and clearly articulate this to participants. If changes cannot be made, be open and honest and explain why. Provide a timeline about the next steps or how people can be involved in the future and how people can be kept updated. You could ask participants if they would like to sign up to updates about the project. And remember to ensure that all communications are authentic and thank people for their time. If possible and budget allows, ensure people are compensated for their time given. Thank you for listening today, and I hope this has been useful.